Content warning. I will be talking about violent Islamophobia in this video, so opt out if you don't want to hear about that. Within the last week, I was challenged on Twitter to define what intersectional feminist meant in my Twitter bio. And I had a hard time doing it on Twitter. I would have a hard time doing it now. I'm not an expert by any means. I'm trying to learn constantly. But what I can say is that oftentimes in mainstream media, even when it's portrayed in a positive light, feminism is still usually centered around white women. And while they experience inequality, absolutely, that is not the whole picture. My feminism has to include people of color. My feminism has to include people of all religions and ethnicities and backgrounds and nationalities. My feminism has to include people of all abilities and languages. And if it doesn't, it's bullshit. So today, my feminism calls for justice for Muslims, in particular in the case of the Chapel Hill murders. It's Monday, Paul Talkers, and today I want to take a respectful look at the murders of Deah Barakat, his wife Yusor, and her sister Razan Abu-Salha. If you hadn't heard, on February 10th, a 46-year-old white man and self-professed atheist who lived in the same apartment complex as Deah went to them and killed the three of them, execution style. News organizations are saying that police are saying that this may be the result of a long-time parking dispute between the killer and the victims. But it was a long-standing parking dispute. The killer was often seen angry and carrying around a gun, and the people that he killed weren't any of the white people in the apartment complex. It was the three Muslim people in the apartment complex. As is usually the case in complicated scenarios like this, I don't want to focus on the specifics of the event. There are plenty of news articles that go into the specifics. Take a look at Al Jazeera's reporting in particular. It's good reporting. Rather, I want to examine this event in the framework of the larger system and environment of Islamophobia in the United States and in the world. There are many traps that we fall into in examining terrible murders like this. One is that we try to give equal weight to all sides of the argument, even when one side is a hateful side and the other side is the victim's side. Those sides don't carry equal weight. The victim's side is always heavier. If you look at news stories of violence involving Muslims, either the Muslims causing violence or the Muslims as victims of violence, you will see a stark difference in the reporting styles. It happens terribly infrequently that Muslim people are violent, but it is always painted as an enormous scourge upon the world's peace. If you take a look at the 5 pillars of Islam and then you listen to any Islamic teachings, you'll find that they're mostly talking about peace and giving to people who need things and love, not violence. And yet if someone who's even vaguely related to Islam commits an act of violence, it is blown hugely out of proportion. On the other hand, when victims of violence are Muslim, not only do horrifically Islamophobic commenters come out of the woodwork, the reporting is much kinder to the assailants than the victims. In the case of the Chapel Hill murders, why are any news organizations giving a platform to the wife of the self-confessed murderer of these 3 Islamic people? I would say to you that she is given default credibility because she's white. The murderer is given default credibility because he's white. Racists and Islamophobes are going to take the default tactic in these scenarios of saying, well, if those 3 people were something else besides Muslim, the same thing would have happened. Or they're going to say, well, obviously this killer had mental health issues, and that's what led him to killing those 3 Muslim people. Or they're going to say, well, this is a gun access issue. And you might pause me there and say, but Paul, gun access issue, that sounds like a liberal response. And I would say, yes, liberals can be Islamophobic as well. And that is hard to see when you paint our peoples in the United States by only 2 colors. You think that one of those colors must be right and the other color must be wrong. No, many of us can be wrong. Many of us can be right. Our colors have nothing to do with it, whether literal, ethnic, or political. So yeah, very liberal people might point out that this is a gun access problem, and if the killer didn't have access to his gun, maybe this wouldn't have happened. I'm not going to say that gun access isn't a problem, but what I'm saying in this scenario, if you focus on that, you erase the Islamophobia that is at the heart of these senseless killings. The facts are that liberal atheists can be militant Islamophobes. Muslim people can be peace-loving and harmless. The police don't always tell the media the whole truth because they're legally restricted from doing so. And the news media has to follow certain guidelines themselves, which makes reporting slanted at best. And it's not as if internet activists are free from problems either. Immediately after the Chapel Hill murders, people started trying to trend the hashtag Muslim Lives Matter. And that might have been done in the best of intents, but what that tends to do is appropriate all of the hard work and focus that went into Black Lives Matter. And Black lives still do matter. And there are, by the way, Black Muslims as well. What I've picked up from Tumblr is I'm going to use the hashtag Justice for Muslims because they need it. And the Islamophobia that is entrenched in so many aspects of our nation of the United States and everywhere else in the world. Hey, France, I'm thinking about you. That Islamophobia gets in the way of justice, not to mention peace. And yes, that is a part of my intersectional feminism. What do you think? Has Islamophobia really colored as many aspects of our culture, and in fact global culture, as I claim that it has? Let me know in the comments below. If you get into arguments about the Islamophobic nature of the Chapel Hill murders, feel free to share this video to make your point if I did a good job of it. You'll notice that I'm wearing band merch from Static Cadets. I'll link to their website below. A little bit more than half of them are YouTubers, so obviously I'm gonna support them. Hey, if I did a weekend live stream like at 9 p.m. Eastern time, would people tune in for a Q&A session with me? I'd probably do that with someone else, like I Like Allison or another YouTuber. Let me know in the comments too about that. As always, thanks for watching, and tomorrow will be even better.